Welcome in, Big Blue Nation, to another episode of the Cats Talk podcast. I'm your host, Cam'Ron Johnston, joined by my co-host, Tyler Britton and Jacob Boyers. And guys, we've got a special episode today. We're not even talking about the Kentucky Wildcats today. Not much really at all. We're going to talk about the SEC in its entirety. We're doing a over-under win predictions, team by team, for the entire SEC slate, not named the Kentucky Wildcats. Obviously, next week, next Thursday, you'll get your complete dive in on the Kentucky roster and our over-under predictions for the team. But for this week, guys, we're going to talk about SEC football because guess what? Only a little bit over 2 weeks away. Football is about to be back. About to start getting some action here in a little bit. Some other, non-Power 4 conferences about to start playing football. Guys, Jacob, I know you start to love this weather here coming up in October. This is your time to shine. You love this cold weather. How are we feeling about football being back?
I can't wait. I told you guys last week, even if, you think the Cats aren't going to be great, like it's just the best time of the year. You take the TV outside, have a fire going, make a big old bowl of chili and drink some Miller Lights. It's just, you can't beat this time of the year. You bet on 12 games a day and just do nothing but watch football. I'm stoked.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. Obviously, we have some excitement that we've been maybe brewing ourselves for the Kentucky Wildcats. Maybe some is a little off the edge there. Maybe we're going a little off the rails. But, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started here. First team is up. Jacob, the Georgia Bulldogs. I've tasked you with giving me a little deep dive on what we expect from these Georgia Bulldogs. Give me their over-under win line and what you got them doing.
Yeah, so Georgia, obviously Carson Beck now in Miami. Over-under is right at 9.5. I don't foresee, quarterback play really having kind of a big drop-off. I know they got Gunnar Stockton, kind of unproven junior there, taking the reins as the QB. But, if you just watched last year, Carson Beck really wasn't that good. Came in with potential first-round pick kind of aspirations and, was even kind of talked about as potentially a Heisman finalist. Never really kind of panned out to that. I think this Georgia team is going to be pretty good. I got them hitting the over. Part of it is, they don't have the toughest schedule in the world. Most of their, tougher games, Ole Miss, Texas, Alabama, all at home, Florida at home. Really their toughest road games probably at Tennessee, who, I think is going to be a little worse than they were last year. So I actually think Georgia's going to be one of the better teams in the conference. I know that's not, some big surprise, but I got them going over that number, and I got them only losing one game. I don't know either Texas at home or Alabama at home, but just kind of getting all those tough teams at home, I think this schedule kind of lines up for Georgia to be right back as one of the 4 best teams in college football this year.
Yeah, Jacob, I'm right there with you. I've got them hitting the over as well. Like you mentioned, I'm looking at it, and I kind of told you before we started, I try to look at it in ways of which ones I think are losses and then work my way from there. And really, even the Texas one, like you mentioned, they've got Texas. It's at home. I don't think either one of us would be surprised to see that game go either way. For that reason, I'm going to take Georgia, especially over 9.5. Honestly, I think even at 10.5, I think I would still probably take them with the over. And before we get too far into the podcast, all of these numbers were from BetMGM. So that was as of last Sunday. So lines might have changed a little bit. But now, Tyler, what do you got for Georgia there?
Yeah, I got Georgia at the over right now. I have them at 10-2 for the season. I just have some confidence that Georgia, they're always a powerhouse in the SEC. So I just feel like they're going to do well.
Yeah. One thing to kind of watch for Georgia is can they have enough production from their defensive line. This is a team that kind of dominated last year up front. They had 37 sacks, but a lot of those guys are in the NFL now. Jalen Walker, Mikel Walker, Jalen and Mikel Walker. They only have 8 returning sacks for the year. So if they can get some production from some other guys on that being up front, I think they can be right back to where they were.
Yeah, but honestly, think about Georgia. How often do you see them throwing first-round pass rushers into the NFL and defensive tackles? Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Traylon Walker, first overall pick. They produce guys year in, year out. I don't think they'll have any problem finding that pass rush. Speaking of pass rush and, just producing talent and getting to the NFL, Alabama Crimson Tide. Tyler, give me your pick for them.
Yeah, I have Alabama doing really well this year. I think they've been the staple of the SEC for really the last couple of decades here. Obviously, primarily under Nick Saban, now under a new coach here. But look, I have them going 12-0. I have them going undefeated throughout the season. That might be a shock for some. It was a shock to me as I was going down the list, I'll be honest. But as I was going team by team, I felt good about their overall roster here. Assuming they can all stay healthy, they have really good skill players. They have a really good receiving core here. They got really good at the secondary as well. I think one of the flaws they had late last year was a couple of the injury bugs. But I think if they can stay healthy, they'll definitely own the SEC this year. Is my bold prediction for them. So obviously, we'll give them the over there, but I do believe that it's warranted.
I'm 12-0. I mean, first off, just in the SEC that's crazy. I mean, a lot of talent. Obviously, Kalen DeBoer's second year there, so a little bit more continuity. I mean, they just named their starting quarterback. Was it yesterday? The day prior? I mean, they are just now figuring that stuff out. I mean, they do have a tough schedule. I mean, they got to face LSU, Tennessee, Georgia. I mean, Auburn. I don't think Auburn's going to be great this year, but, the Iron Bowl is always, a contested battle. I personally actually have Alabama hitting the under. I have them finishing 9-3. I think there's some games there that whether it goes in their favor or not, I just think there's too many close games to be able to hit the over for them.
Yeah. I had them over slightly, but I was kind of with you, Cam. I was going back and forth, kind of teetering between 9-3 and 10-2, and I settled on 10-2, so I do have them over, obviously slightly, but yeah, I thought I was being pretty optimistic having them at 10-2, let alone 12-0. That's a pretty bold prediction there, Tyler. But yeah, I mean, you look at it, Ryan Williams is a superstar. I think he's obviously poised for another huge season off of his very stellar freshman year, but the quarterback is obviously of concern, and then along with to Cam's point of that schedule, it's going to be a tough one, but I do think DeBoer kind of gets it back on track. I mean, I know we look at last year as a down year for Alabama, and they still won 9 games, but I think he gets them back in the playoffs this year. Probably not going to be one of the teams with a bye, but I think they go 10-2 and get in.
Yeah, and I think even with that schedule, even if they do go 9-3, you're talking about a playoff team. I mean, because some of those losses are going to be to higher competition teams as well.
Yep.
I got the Texas Longhorns here, and you want to talk about polarizing. I mean, a very good team last year, lost a lot of depth to the NFL and the NFL draft. Isaiah Bond, Matthew Golden at receiver, but they're bringing in a lot of guys as well. Was able to keep the backfield pretty together for the most part. C.J. Baxter and Quintavion Wisner. I got these guys hitting the over. The line's at 9.5. I've seen some lines at 10.5, so maybe this 9.5 is a little old or a little dated. I mean, even if you look at it, their 2 toughest games of the season are going to be at Ohio State and at Georgia. Even if you give them both losses in those games, that still has them finishing at 10-2. I got them hitting over 9.5 pretty easily. Really, I mean, the question about I think just is Arch good enough to take them to beat teams like Ohio State and Georgia? I think the team around them is going to be good enough to get those 10 wins. After that, it's really can Arch take them to that next level?
Yeah. No, and I got another over with you, Cam. Me and you were talking before that, this started, and I thought the number was 10.5. When you told me BetMGM had them at 9.5, I was ready to run and put a lot on it because I feel really good about them getting 10 wins this season. I got them at 11-1. Not a huge shock or like a team out of left field, but like they're going to be, whenever we get to this point, my prediction to win the national championship. I think Arch is going to be as advertised. I think he's going to be a huge step up in quarterback play that they didn't have last year. I think there's a real scenario that if Quinn Ewers doesn't play in that Ohio State game last year, like we could be talking about a completely different national champion. So I'm extremely high on Texas. I think they're going to be really good. And they're going to be my team to win the SEC and eventually go on to win the national championship.
Tyler?
Yeah, I'm sitting at 10-2 with them. They are. I think they definitely are one of the powerhouses in the SEC. I do think that they struggle against Ohio State. I know there's going to be a lot of turnover with Ohio State, but Ohio State's going to have arguably the number one player on offense and arguably the number one player on defense on that roster. I think there'll be enough formality around that. It's going to be a tough game for them. So I count that as a loss, and I do believe that they find another loss throughout the season as well. So I'll put Texas at 10-2, but I'll still give them the over.
Well, if they put them at 10-2, that would give them the over. So you don't have to worry about giving it to them. But yeah, what you're saying. All right, Jacob, a team that we don't like too much around the Bluegrass, especially when it comes to the football team, the Missouri Tigers. Give me a little rundown on them.
Yeah, a coach that I absolutely can't stand in Eli Drinkwitz, but you know what? He's
such a nerd.
I hate to say it, but I mean he's doing a really good job. I mean, this was a team that went 9-3 a year ago, and won a 10th game in their bowl. Kind of a crazy stat that I thought was 42% of their players are former 4 and 5 stars for a school like Missouri. That's a pretty high number, but they, got a really good running back in Davis. The big thing for them is how elite this defense was a year ago, only allowing 20.4 points a game. They return 9 of their defensive starters and add some more playmaking. I think this defense is going to be even better than a year ago. The question, though, for Missouri is going to be quarterback. They got 2 guys, and Sam Horn and then Bo, I don't even know how to pronounce his last name, Pariba, I guess, that are kind of battling it out for the QB spot. So, I mean, that's going to be their biggest question mark for the year. I do have them slightly over, it was 7.5. I got them going 8-4, so a slight step down from last year. I don't see them contending for a playoff or anything, but they're going to kind of, make some noise in the SEC, and they'll probably beat a team or two that'll keep those teams out of the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you remember this. I mean, I know you do with Marquise Davis. Obviously, we lost that commitment right at the deadline, flipped to the Missouri Tigers. I don't know if you remember the transfer portal and Ahmad Hardy, the running back as well, who I think is going to be big for them during the season. Cats were very in on him as well, lost him out to Missouri. So got a little beef with the Tigers right now. They took 2 elite running backs from us and 2 guys I think are really going to help them win some football games this year. But, Jacob, I'm with you. I got the over. When you look at SEC schedules for the most part, I mean, this is just about as easy as it gets for an SEC schedule. I'm looking at losses with South Carolina and Alabama for sure. Outside of that, I mean, is it crazy to say this might be a 10-2 schedule for Missouri? I don't think Missouri is that good, but I'm saying I don't think that's crazy to say it at all. And with having their over-under win total at 7.5, I'm hammering the over, and I think it's going to be one of the easier ones to get.
If they can get good enough quarterback play, kind of like we were talking about maybe in the Kentucky situation, if you can have a guy that can kind of come out there and manage the game and not kill them with this defense and, running game, they very easily, there is a path there for 10 wins. It kind of, this team reminds me a lot of, the Josh Allen Kentucky year. You just kind of need someone to not kill you offensively because they're going to be able to run the football and they're going to be able to play some defense.
Yeah, you guys aren't going to like where I'm going to go with this, but I'm taking the under with Missouri. I see them for the exact reasons why you're saying, Boyers. I think that they're going to have kind of like what a Kentucky year last year. I'm putting them at 6-6, not necessarily the 4 wins like Kentucky did last year, but I'll give them 6-6. I give them the under. I just don't think that they're going to get enough offensive production or consistency throughout the year to compete down the road. All
right, Tyler, you've been a little controversial here so far. A little controversial. Let's see where you're going here with Ole Miss, because I think this might be one where it gets a little more confrontational.
Yeah, we'll see where you guys are going with this. I'm going to give Ole Miss the over here. I'm going to put them at 10-2. I think they're going to have some close wins here, but look, they have some good strengths here on the offense. We also with Austin Simmons and Deuce Alexander here. Also, you're looking at the defensive line. You're looking at Princewell. I'm going to butcher his last name, Human Minyel, or
He is
And
in
then
the
Cam'Ron.
NFL, so he will not be helping them make plays.
Does
Princely
that change from 10 and 2?
Ellen. Yep.
Well, it looks like I will be backtracking that source that I was using for that. But I get, yeah, well, darn. I don't know where I'm going to go from there. Then I'm still going to stick with 10 and 2 because that's why I looked up, and we're going to go with that. I just have good confidence now.
Jacob, you got anything to say about Tyler?
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with Tyler again here. I think Ole Miss is going to be, worse than they were a year ago. I got them at 8 and 4, so under that total there. Lane Kiffin is an offensive genius. He's going to find ways, to kind of score some points, and they're going to go out there and beat up on some teams early on. Maybe even one of those will be our Kentucky Wildcats, and everybody's going to kind of, buy into the hype and everything. But, Jackson Dart being gone, we kind of see it every year with Lane Kiffin teams to begin with, when they're playing that physical SEC style, it's just hard for them to keep up. So I got them right at 8 and 4.
Yeah, and this might be one of my surprises. I'm looking at either 6 and 6 or 7 and 5 for Ole Miss this year. I think this is going to be a rebuilding year for Ole Miss. And, we'll get to it, especially in the Kentucky, once we start talking about the Cats. I think there's a good chance Kentucky wins that game, especially with it being at home. And, their schedule is just tough. We know what John Summerall is doing down at Tulane. That's one of their non-conference games that they have to play. And then look at LSU, Georgia, South Carolina, Florida. There's just a lot of games that they have to play that I just don't see Austin Simmons being able to lead them in there and win, especially in his first year starting. It takes a while to understand a Lane Kiffin offense. Look, Jackson Dart's first year at Ole Miss was not very good, and he had started the year prior at USC. Austin Simmons has been in the system. He's been there for a year. I don't see it. The schedule's too hard. I'm taking the under here. And honestly, I'm thinking 6 and 6 or 7 and 5 is really their most realistic path, and I think that's probably the best case scenario for them.
Hey, look, if there's one thing to be positive about with the Lane Kiffin offense is you're going to have a lot of flopping players at the most inconvenient times. We've seen that in the past.
Very convenient.
Most convenient injuries of all time. So, that's always going to be a strength in the Lane Kiffin offense. So you never know.
I completely agree with you there. Boy, that game last year, Kentucky, I had the time of my life. That's all I'm going to say. That was one of the best days of my life. I'll truly remember that. I think the season was going to go a lot differently if you would have told me that at that time. If you would have told Cam while he was outside dancing on the streets of Fort Thomas that this team was going to go 4 and 8, I might have slapped you right in the face at that time. But it didn't happen, and here we are. All right, I got another team that can't stand. Jacob, I think you know this. There's obviously a lot more animosity this year, especially after taking us down in basketball when it meant the most, and that's the Tennessee Volunteers. Tennessee, this is one of the ones I struggled with the most. Their line is at 8.5. I just really don't know what to do. I'm right there in the middle spot there. They play Georgia, they play Alabama, which I think are definite losses. And then outside of that, you're looking at teams like Florida, Kentucky, Oklahoma, and Arkansas are going to be teams that are going to have to beat them. I'm still going to take the under, even with that being said. It's a pretty favorable schedule for Tennessee. But just the amount of offseason drama that these guys had with Nico Iamaleava leaving and the way that happened, just doing the quarterback trade with Joey Aguilar coming in from UCLA. They have more offseason drama with Boo Carter. I don't remember if you remember him, Jacob, the corner that almost made it to Kentucky a couple years ago as well. I just looked at something that said he's still day-to-day. He's not even really showing up to practices now, and we've got 2 weeks before the season starts. They lost huge contributors on their defensive line with James Pierce and Omar Norman-Lott, first and second-round pick. And Cleveland just took their running back, Dylan Sampson, who led the SEC in yards last year. For those reasons, I'm going to take Tennessee being under 8.5 wins. I could see this one going either way, and I'll be interested to hear what you guys have to say about it.
Yeah, before kind of really diving into the schedule, I was right there with you, Cam. I'm like, with everything that kind of happened in the offseason, to begin with, one, I don't think they're nearly as talented as a team that they were a year ago. And then just everything else that was going on. And, Heupel, I've never really been a huge fan of. I know he beat Alabama that one year and felt like Tennessee was ready to build the statue for him at that point outside the stadium. But, I just looking at it on paper, I'm like, this is going to be an under. And then to your point, Cam, you get into their schedule, and it's really not that bad of a schedule. If they had a team similar to last year, I think you'd be kind of almost running to put money on their over. But with all that said, and again, I came in saying I was going to, they were going to be under. I still got them at 9-3. To your point, they'll lose, I believe, to Alabama and Georgia. And then probably I had them losing to Florida, but, they could even go and win that one. If they win that one, yeah, maybe they slip up somewhere along the road, but I don't really see them losing 4 games just with that schedule. It's just I think they got a really good draw and they got a really good schedule. Maybe Kentucky can come in there and surprise them or something. But,
let's do it.
But yeah, I got them at 9-3 and hitting their over.
I think we're kind of all on board with the fact that they're going to be, we're not sure what the actual outcome is going to be with this team. I am giving them the under. I'm with you, Cam. Which it started with me. Look, I think
that's all. I lost.
Look, I mean, I think the only thing they won this offseason truly was the fact that they turned down the quarterback situation. I'll give kudos to that. Holding strong with the NIL stuff, and that was the first big news article out there about quarterback situation and pay and NIL and all that stuff. So I'll give them credit on that in the offseason, but that also just means your football team is going with a quarterback that you weren't necessarily planning for next year. So for those reasons, look, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of good things about the team, but until we actually see them on the field, I'm just going to go with the under here. I think they're going to finish the season at 7-5.
Ooh, 7-5. Man, that's an easy cash in under for you. All right, Jacob, you got the South Carolina Gamecocks. Really, I think a lot of things about the SEC this year is there's a lot of polarizing teams where I think the volatility of whether these teams are either tremendously good or very bad all depends on that quarterback situation. And Lenore Sellers with South Carolina is right at the helm of that. Tell me what you're thinking with their over-under.
Yeah, they're over-under right there at 7.5. You made kind of a good point, Cam. Like, there's a lot of teams in the SEC that you could almost see, everything falls right, and they're a playoff team, or they could be, a 6-6, 7-5 team. You mentioned Lenore Sellers. I think he's going to, have a really strong sophomore year. Showed obviously a lot of promise as a true freshman. This is a team that averaged 30.5 points a year ago on offense, and I think they got more talented offensively. Nick Carver is obviously a very electric wide receiver. The big question, I think, for South Carolina this year is going to be their defense. They lost the vast majority of that front seven from a year ago.
A lot of them, yeah.
I think they're going to have a hard time, stopping people this year, and then it comes down to Will Sellers and Nick Carver and the rest of this offense, score enough points for you to win. I do have them going under that 7.5. I went through and I had them finishing 7-5. I think it's going to be kind of a letdown from the team that went 9-3 last year and, nearly beat Alabama on a last-second play and, was potentially flirting with a playoff bid. I think this year is going to be kind of a little more of a disappointment for them. And then also, just the end of their schedule, we talked about it. Their last, 6 games they go at LSU, Oklahoma at home, Bama at home, at Ole Miss, at A&M. They get a break with Coastal Carolina and then Clemson to finish out the year. That's a gauntlet to kind of finish the year there.
Yeah, they really have a lot of their easy games up front. I'm going to disagree with you here, Jacob. I know, this team lost a lot of talent, especially on the defense side of the ball. Nick Emanwari. There's 3 other guys that just aren't up. TJ Sanders, the defensive tackle as well. They lost a ton of talent on the defense side of the ball. But I think this schedule actually I think it kind of works for them. I think that 7.5 number, I think they find a way to go 8-4 throughout this season. I think those losses are going to be to teams like LSU, Alabama, Clemson. And then it's just which one do you drop of those, throw-up games? And I think they'll only lose one of those. And for those reasons, I think they'll go 8-4 and hit that over.
Yeah, Cam, I'm with you on that too. I'm actually 8-4, right there with the over. Enough. I see them going 8-4 as well for the same reasons you were just saying, actually. And I think, well, I also include the fact that I think that they're running the high from the momentum they had last year. I do think Lenore Sellers does have improves this year and goes into his sophomore year. So for those reasons, I do give him 8-4. Gives him a slight edge over with the over there.
All right, Tyler, you got the old Aggies down there at College Station, Texas. Their over-under line's at 7.5. What do you got them doing?
Yeah, I have the Texas A&M here staggering at 9-3 to finish out the year. I think that they have some good pieces on offense. They got Le'Veon Moss, they got Mario Carver here, the running back, receiver. Their biggest weaknesses are going to be the quarterback play and the offensive consistency. But if they can keep that together, I think they can have a really good season this year. I think they're going to get some favorable matchups here, starting off with San Antonio or University of Texas, San Antonio, Utah State. I think they'll ultimately drop against Notre Dame, LSU, and Texas, but I think they have pretty good matchups across the board otherwise.
Yeah, this one was another one that was kind of tough for me because I see like a guaranteed 4 losses for them. And then after that, it's just, can they find ways to beat Auburn? Can they beat Florida? Those throw-up games like Missouri, can they find ways to beat teams like that? I think they'll find a way to get it done. I have Texas A&M hitting the over as well.
Well, once again, I'm going to go against both of you guys. And, I got them under at 7-5. I feel like every year now A&M is just going to consistently be 7-5, 8.
At some point, it's got to change, though. Why not this be the year?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do think their coaching situation is obviously better from Jimbo Fisher and all that. I don't know. They do play a pretty tough schedule. To your point, Cam, I think there's like 4 pretty much guaranteed losses. I think I got them losing to Florida as well, to kind of get them to 5. I think Notre Dame beats them again. So I just think it's going to be hard for this A&M team to scrap up, 8-9 wins. So, to your point, I agreed with you on, 4 pretty much guaranteed losses, and then I feel like they'll drop another one somewhere along the way.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why Vegas makes so much money on these bets. I mean, they're putting all these lines right at spots where you're like, I could definitely see them being 8-4, also 7-5. I mean, there's a reason these guys make all this money, and we're out here just talking about what they're setting these lines at.
They're big gold buildings in Vegas for a reason.
Oh, trust me, as somebody who just went, I'm fully aware, and they took my money every chance they had while I was there, every chance. But, all right, now this is going to be where I'm making bold predictions here with the Louisiana State Tigers.
Sure.
I think this team is going to have a chance to win the SEC. I really do. I think this team is up there with Georgia and with Texas. I think it's those 3 are in a division of their own, sitting at the cream of the crop. And it's my Heisman pick. Garrett Nussmeier has a ton of weapons this year. I mean, we're talking about guys like Nick Anderson from Oklahoma, the transfer receiver. Arion Brown's going to be their 3rd, 4th weapon as receiver. And this is a guy who we were trying to force feed the ball to. The only cause for concern, first off, they have to play at Clemson, at Ole Miss, at Alabama. Those are 3 tough games that they're going to have to play all on the road. But like I already mentioned, I've got the under with Ole Miss. I don't think Ole Miss is going to be as good. I think they find a way to win that game. And then it's about beating South Carolina. The only thing that I'm worried about, you're going to have 2 brand new tackles starting. You just lost Emory Jones and Will Campbell to the 1st and 3rd rounds of the NFL draft. And to be quite honest with you, I am not a Brian Kelly fan in the slightest. Never have been. I don't think I ever will be. One of the biggest sleazeballs this side of the Mississippi. And for those reasons, I still love this team, even though Brian Kelly is the guy overseeing all of it. I've got LSU going over 8.5. I actually think LSU has a chance at going 10-2, if not 11-1.
Yeah, I agree with you on the over portion. I got them right at 9-3, but I will say, like, every point you just made, Cam, I think you hit the nail right on the head. This team very well could be one of the best teams in the SEC and all of college football. I mean, they are in an 11-1 talent roster. I think what prevents them from getting there is Brian Kelly. I'm not a fan at all. I think they lose to Clemson the opening weekend because Brian Kelly loses a big game to start the season every single year. He's done it his whole time at Notre Dame. You know, he blew games with Jaden Daniels playing quarterback. Like, I agree with you. This is by far the most talented roster they've had since, 2019 when Joe Burrow was there. And on paper, this team very well could win a national title. I think they're going to lose to Clemson. I think they'll lose at Alabama. And then I think, they'll probably drop a game that they probably shouldn't somewhere along the way. And, we'll see how the rest of college football shakes up this year. But I don't think with their schedule, 9-3 is going to be good enough to get them in the, playoff. And I think it's going to be another, solid year for LSU, but a season where fans are kind of left scratching their head and trying to figure out if they can move on from Brian Kelly, because I just don't see it with him. I don't see it ever working at LSU.
I think just off the last point you made there, I think 9-3 gets his team into the playoff, because you would be talking about losses to Clemson, South Carolina, Alabama, all teams that are top. What's South Carolina ranked right now? Like 14th in the
somewhere
poll. You're all talking about those are 3 top 15 teams that you would have losses to. I think that would still find their way in the playoffs. But the Brian Kelly factor, like you mentioned, that is my biggest cause for concern with this LSU roster. Go Tigers, Ed Ogeron, go Tigers. I think this team's going to be great this year. Tyler, what about you?
I actually have the opposite here, guys. I have them going under, which means you guys are both wrong. And I'm going to be automatically right on this, like always. No, I have them going 8-4, but that's not that. It's deceiving because I say they're under. I still don't think they're going to be a very competitive team all year. But I think that there's just there's going to be a couple games that they drop, including the games you guys mentioned: Alabama, Ole Miss, Clemson, and I think they find a way to drop one more as well. So I think they're going to be a very solid team. But I just don't see them getting 9 wins.
Just an abysmal take, like always. All right, Jacob, you're up. The Auburn Tigers, sticking with the Tigers. Give me what you got with them.
Yeah, Auburn over under is what is it, 7.5 or 6.5?
Yep.
7.5.
Yeah, I mean, you've heard me talk about it a few times when we've talked about the Cats. I think Hugh Freeze is coming in, obviously on the hot seat. They haven't been great on the football field with him. Recruiting this past year has been abysmal for him. So, I think if they have a disappointing season, I think Hugh Freeze is going to find his way out the door. They bring in Jackson Arnold from Oklahoma to play quarterback. But also on this offense, they lost their 1,000-yard rusher from a year ago. They lost their top receiver. I got them going under. I'm teetering between 5-7 and 6-6. I think they're going to be fighting just to kind of get bowl eligible. I don't think this is a very good team. Their kind of one strong suit, though, is they do have a pretty solid defense. Last year, they only allowed 21.3 points per game. They're bringing back most of their starters on that side of the ball, including they do have some playmakers and, very good edge rusher and Falk. And then they also got a very good linebacker in DeMarcus Redrick. I don't know. Not huge on, Hugh Freeze. I think this team's going to struggle. Jackson Arnold never really showed me a whole lot at Oklahoma that would make you, think he can pretty much lead a bad offense and make them better, because I do think this is a bad offense pretty much all around. So I think this is a team that's not going to be fighting for 8 wins. I think they're going to be fighting to get bowl eligible.
Yeah, see, this 7.5 is, it's a perfectly set line. I also just think this might be the easiest schedule in the SEC this year as well. They face Alabama and then Alabama and Georgia, so there's 2 losses there. Outside of that, you're talking about teams like A&M and Missouri, Kentucky, Vanderbilt. They got a pretty good draw when it comes to their SEC slate. I've got Auburn hitting the over. I'm not a huge Jackson Arnold fan, but I do think he's good enough to be able to get it done. And I think there's something to be said for I mean, Hughes Freeze, yes, he's on the golf course a lot. So we need to tamper that down a little bit. But I think there is something to be said for coaching for your job. We kind of saw it with Billy Napier last year in Florida. There's a little bit of an edge to it when you know, like, hey, listen, this is going to be your last year if you don't turn things around. They were able to bring in Eric Singleton, the elite receiver from Georgia Tech. So I think that's going to be a net positive in the long run there. I think they find a way to get 8 wins. I'm taking the over for Auburn.
I will say real quick before you give your prediction, Tyler, I think they lose that opener at Baylor.
I mean, it's not the craziest thing.
The SEC schedule may not be the toughest, but I think they're going to lose a non-conference game and then, go from there.
Boyers, we're on the same side. I have, we have almost identical predictions for win-loss. I have them at 5 and 7 for the year. I'm going well under that 7.5 prediction. So Cam, I don't
football on this podcast. Not me. Not ever.
I just don't have any faith in Auburn. I haven't really had faith in them in a while here. They really, it just seems like year after year they're just not a team to really compete well in the SEC. Maybe that one year they splash up, but they really don't compete all too well throughout. So they're really right there in the mid for me, 5 and 7.
All right, and Jackson Arnold, Auburn's current quarterback from the University of Oklahoma. Tyler, the Sooners, 7.5 is their line. What do you got them doing?
For 7.5, I have them winning 7 games and losing 5. That's kind of where I'm at right now with Oklahoma. I think since joining the SEC, obviously they only had 1 year there, but they've kind of struggled to keep up with some of the SEC teams. I think that continues into year 2 here in the SEC. Not to say they don't have some talent on there, but I think that their defense is ultimately going to underperform across the board here. So I'm going to put them at 7-5 and just put them just under their over-under here.
I think this might be the easiest under that we have in this entire SEC. I mean, they play Michigan in the non-conference, Auburn, Texas, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Alabama, Missouri, and LSU. Like the entire top half of the SEC, they're going to have to play. And I don't know if they win any of those games. I'd be surprised to see this team go 5 and 7 at the best. And I think you're looking at them at probably bottom 4 in the SEC, and I really don't think that's that crazy to say.
I got to mention here, I put them at 7-5, and you brought up a good point about Michigan. I put them as winning against Michigan out of spite to Michigan, so that very easily could be flipped. I just decided that I didn't want to put a win in the Michigan column, so I definitely switched that.
I agree with you, Cam. This is probably one I actually will put some actual money on because I just
join me in. I'm there with you.
I don't see this team being good. Like honestly, the fact that they're coming into the preseason ranked 18th, I think, is more so because of the name Oklahoma rather than the talent and the coaching of this team. Like Venables hasn't shown anything as a head coach since going to Oklahoma. I'm with you. I gave them 5 and 7, and I thought that was even kind of being a little generous and trying to, scrape a win somewhere. I don't see any world where this team gets up to 8 wins. I'm right there with you guys, and this is one I'll actually put some money on. I feel like you got 3 to 4 games really to kind of play with here. I don't see a world where they get up over 7.5.
Now, this is only the third team that we've all been in unison on with our bets. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, probably bad. But speaking of bad, DJ Lagway in the injury news just keeps coming out of Gainesville and out of Florida. I mean, I don't even know what's going on. I mean, they're saying, is he still not throwing the football? We're like 2 weeks away from the season, and they're still not sure on whether he's going to be good to go for the opener. I will say, when you talk about just this team could be competing for a playoff spot, or I could see him being a 4-win team. Florida is the pinnacle of that to me. A lot of it has to do with the health of DJ Lagway. Played really well down the stretch. I mean, is there going to be a little bit of a sophomore slump? We see that in the SEC all the time. Guys come in, play well for 8 games towards the end of the year, come back the next year, just aren't nearly as good. Think about Will Levis in his second year with the Cats, a similar thing there. They do have two elite defensive ends, though, in Tyreek Sapp and Caleb Banks. I watch the NFL Stock Exchange podcast a lot, and they love Eugene Wilson, great receiver that they have there. And, Jake, I know you remember Jaden Ball. Guy had 7 touchdowns in his entire season last year. 5 of them were against the Cats. I mean, that game was so gross. The game was disgusting. So, but yeah. Now, I got them under, and I got them under pretty easily. They got to play LSU, Miami, and Texas. I think those are all 3 losses there. Then they got to face Georgia and Tennessee and Ole Miss. Even though I don't think Ole Miss is going to be that good, I think it's still going to be a challenging game for them. And honestly, the time in which they play Kentucky in November 8th, coming to Lexington, end of November, middle of November, it's going to be cold. I'm not saying Kentucky's going to win that game, but with the health of DJ Lagway, who knows who's starting at quarterback there? I got them hitting the under.
Yeah. They're a team that I would not put any real money on one way or another because I think, you hit it, Cam. Like, I kind of made this under the assumption, I know things don't look great, but I'm giving this prediction assuming Lagway is going to play at least majority of the season. I have them over slightly at 8-4, but like I don't feel good about that prediction really. Like this is one, I really could see this team going 5-7. I could see them being 9-3, flirting with the playoffs. I just, obviously the health of Lagway is going to depend, but like, you could say the schedule is really hard, but it's also, an opportunity to kind of go out there and, get some big time wins. I think Miami's going to be down Carson Beck, even to kind of being there at 10. I think they'll get that one. But, they got probably 3 guaranteed losses in Texas, Georgia, and at LSU. So I'm only predicting one kind of the rest of the way, but I don't feel good about it. This is one I would definitely stay away from, but for the purpose of this, I'll take them over slightly at 8-4.
I'll take them over as well, Boyers. We're in unison on that as well.
I will bet the under.
I have them going 9-3. I think while they play down in the swamp, if it's anything like what it's been up in here in Maryland, is the humidity is going to get to some of these teams that come visit, and I just think that the talent there and the level of play that they're going to have, I think it'll get them to 9-3 if everything come together.
And leave it to Tyler to compare Gainesville, Florida weather.
I'm saying if it's anything like it, it's been miserable here, and I can only imagine what it's like down there. So
East, to make that comparison.
Southeast, north, south.
I mean, look, I'm just putting it this way. I walk outside and my shades already fog up. If that's doing that down in Florida, I can only imagine. People are going to be going there. They're going to be miserable.
All right, Jake. Vanderbilt Commodores coming off of probably the highest high they've had in that football program for quite some time. Over-under line is set at 5.5. Will they continue that high, or will they come crashing down to reality?
I think they come crashing down. And I think a lot of it is going to be because of Diego. I got this team only winning 4 games, so I got them under the 5.5. And I think Kentucky gets their lick back, and that'll be like probably the one SEC game I'll have the Cats winning all year. Little sneak peek there for next week's episode. But yeah, I just, you hear the reports, you see the Instagram posts, like Diego's kind of loving being Diego right now and Vandy. And I mean, I don't know how focused on football he is right now. Obviously I don't know him. Maybe he's taking it extremely serious, but just I think this offense is going to be significantly worse than a year ago. Now, probably their biggest bright spot will be, again, their defense. I feel like a lot of the teams we've kind of talked about that, but they brought back all 3 of their top tacklers from a year ago. 7 of their 8 leaders in sacks are back, and then they had 19 turnover plays that guys on this defense contributed to that are now still back. So very experienced defense. Obviously I feel like they're a well-coached team. I just think with the schedule, this is a team they don't really have much of a home field advantage. It's kind of something that's always going to be against them. But I just think, Diego Pavia is going to take a huge step back from last year. And then I think this team just takes a step back in general.
Yeah, I mean, Diego Pavia seems like the type of guy who loves the fact that Vanderbilt University is in Nashville and he can go out to Broadway. He seems like the type of guy who loves to thrive on that.
Poor man's Johnny Manziel, maybe?
Yeah, even though I can guarantee you 99% of the population that's in Nashville, he could walk into that bar and nobody would know who he is. Because Nashville doesn't produce college football fans. I think we know that. Look at the stadium. Look how empty it is, even after their best years. I'm with you, Jake. I'm taking the under with Vandy. I mean, I'm looking at it right now, and I'm thinking 4, maybe 5 wins most, and that comes with beating, either Kentucky or Auburn. And that's not games I'm necessarily saying they're going to win. So I'm taking the under for the Vanderbilt Commodores. Diego Pavia cashes in NIL-wise, but this is the start of the end for Mr. Pavia.
I cannot believe you guys are taking the under here. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. I'm going there as well. We are going under together.
I knew you celebrated too early. I knew you celebrated too early.
You're a dirty dog.
I have them going 3-9. I just don't have them having a good year whatsoever. I think they rode their train. I think they stole some wins they weren't supposed to win even last year. I think Kentucky was one of those games, if I'm being honest. But I think this year much to your guys' credit, what you just mentioned, they're not going to get past, I don't think, 3 wins here. So Vanderbilt, welcome back down to the bottom of SEC football.
Yep, that's where they deserve to be. You can have baseball, get David Price, Dansby Swanson, all those guys you want. Just stay out of football. We'll figure that out ourselves. Tyler, Arkansas Razorbacks, speaking of teams we don't like, granted, that might be more on the basketball court, but still, 5.5 is the over-under for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Got them going over, under? Let me know.
I mean, 5.5, I just feel like I get why they were there, but I mean, it was a little too low. I put them at the over here by a couple wins. I actually give them 7 wins this year. 7-5 is an overall record. They have a really good defense anchored by 2 players in KJ Jefferson and Grant Morgan here. Their weaknesses are going to be their overall offensive inconsistency and then their lack of depth. But I think they'll lose against the big teams like Notre Dame. They'll lose against Texas A&M, LSU, Texas. They'll drop one more somewhere in there. But I see them getting at least 6 wins, if not 7.
Yeah, I'm going to go against the grain with you here. I've got them hitting the under as well. Looking at their schedule, I'm trying to find guaranteed wins. Alabama A&M, Arkansas State, Memphis, probably a guaranteed win. And really, that's all I've got when it comes to guarantees. More than likely, I think they'll beat Mississippi State. There, you're looking at 4, and then they got to beat teams like Ole Miss, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Auburn, LSU, Texas, Missouri. I just don't think they find a way to win 2 of those games to get them to that over. So for that reason, I'm going to stay under.
Yeah, I agree. I got them finishing 4-8, so I got them under as well. I just think you kind of look at everything. Sam Pittman, it feels like the fans are kind of ready for something new. He's been there for a little while. I do think Taylor Green has the potential to be a very exciting quarterback in this league. So, I mean, maybe if he kind of takes that step with, decision-making along with, some other stuff, he's obviously got the athleticism and the arm talent. But, he's really hasn't even completely won the job, I don't think, from KJ Jefferson still. I just don't think this team, I think it's going to be a very similar road kind of that they were on last year, and I got them at 4-8 and probably making a change. And who knows, maybe John Gruden's their head coach this time next year.
Hey, I don't want that to happen. I like John. I don't need to dislike him for whatever reason. Unfortunately, I got stuck with Mississippi State. I mean,
pretty easy.
I mean, it's pretty easy. The over/under is set at 3.5. When you think of something like that, you're just like, oh, it's got to be the over. I'm taking the under here, fellas. I mean, I'm looking at it, and I was telling Jacob before we started recording, all these other teams, I'm listing down key games and momentum swing games. For them, I'm just looking at it as like, hey, you have to beat the non-conference schedule. They play Arizona State, who's ranked 11th in the AP poll as one of their non-conference games. There's a loss. I do not see them beating a single SEC team this year. And like Jacob mentioned, I might even get into it here. I don't think they're beating Southern Miss either. Marshall basically took their entire team that was really good last year and with the head coach just moved down to Southern Miss. I think Southern Miss can be pretty good this year. I got them beating Alcorn State and Northern Illinois and going 2-10. Sorry, Mississippi State. Honestly, this might be the way a lot of fans feel about the Kentucky football program in the state that they're in as well. So we're not too far away from them. So I don't want to, back over the bus on them, but I got them going under.
Yeah, I agree, Cam. This is another. It's hard to say 3.5. You feel really, really good about betting the teams under, but I'm there. I don't see a world for 4 wins. I got them going 2-10. I'm with you. I think they lose that opener to Southern Miss. I think not only obviously is this the worst team in the SEC. I think this will probably be the worst team in all of Power 4 football. And there's going to be a lot of teams outside of the Power 4 conferences that are better than this Mississippi State team. Just flat out not a good team. And I think they're going to be struggling to scrape 4 wins together. I don't see it at all. Best case, they beat Southern Miss week 1 and go 3-10. But I don't think they win an SEC game, and I got them at 2-10.
Well, how about that, gentlemen? We're going to finish up our predictions here going in together here with all going under at 3.5 here. I'm going to put them at 3 wins, but I think they're going to struggle to get there even. So I'm in agreement. I think they finished the bottom the SEC as well, but I will definitely give them the under here.
All right, I'm putting you guys on the spot here because I did not ask you guys this pre-recording. But since we just went through everybody's schedules, everybody's over-under, give me who your bet would be as of right now to win the SEC championship. Tyler, I'm going to start with you. You seem like you were heavy on the Texas train. Actually, you did have Alabama going undefeated.
Yeah, Bama at 12.
Yeah, you got Bama going undefeated. So what are we thinking?
Well, you specifically asked the conference champion here. So I do see Alabama going undefeated. I do see them matching up against Texas. I still got Alabama winning, though. I think Alabama is going to be, even if they don't go 12-0, I think that they get there, and I think that they ultimately are the best team in the SEC. So I think they advance to the playoff and have a good run there. I'm not saying they're winning the whole chip here. Definitely not saying that, but I think they will win the SEC.
Jacob?
Yeah, you're not really putting me on the spot. I mentioned it when we gave our Texas predictions. I think this is not only the best team in the SEC, but I think the best team in all of college football this year. And I think, obviously I had them and Georgia both going 11-1, and I think they'll play a hell of an SEC championship game in the rematch there. And I think Texas wins the SEC and then goes on to kind of keep things rolling with Shark.
Yeah, and I'm going to do something I completely hate and despise to do. I'm putting all my eggs in the Brian Kelly basket. I hate to do it. I really do. This could be something where we look back in 6 months and I just look like an absolute complete clown like I normally do. But there's so much talent with this LSU team. And I think as long as they get into the playoffs, as long as they can find a way to, just take care of the games that they should, don't lose those typical Brian Kelly games, I don't see a team that's going to be able to stop the amount of weapons that they have. And then the linebackers that they have, you're talking about Harold Perkins, who is just a complete and ridiculous athlete, and then Whit Weeks, who's probably actually better linebacker, who just doesn't have that same athleticism. Both of those guys are supposed to be all SEC and all Americans. I think LSU is going to get it done. Granted, I hate nothing more than riding my wagon to Brian Kelly.
Be careful getting in the car with Brian Kelly.
Be careful doing anything with Brian. He's going to put you up in one of those towers to film practice, and you're going to, not see him make another day. We'll leave it there. But guess what, guys? Do you have any other bold takes you want to go? I think I rattled off some bold ones. I got a lot of mine with the LSU Tigers. Garrett Nussmeier winning the Heisman.
That's a good one.
LSU winning the SEC and winning the national championship. Anybody got any spicy, bold takes that they want to fire off before we start getting and diving into the Kentucky Wildcats, what truly matters?
I don't think so out of the SEC. Like we talked about, I think all these were good lines. I think it was kind of a fun thing to talk about and think about for everybody else in the league. It's once again going to be the toughest league in all of college football. So, you're going to have some really good teams come away with 7 wins on the season. So we're almost there, boys. 16 days away.
Oh, yeah. Tyler, got any fiery takes for me?
No, I think my bold take was the 12-0 for Alabama. I think that's as bold as I'm going to get today. I think they'll take some guts there, but
yeah, that'll be enough. All right, guys. Well, listen, Kentucky Wildcats are 16 days away from kickoff in Kroger Field against Toledo. Jacob, best Kentucky Wildcat to ever wear the number 16? You know it. Who is it?
Pass it. I want Tyler to answer it.
Back to you. Who is it?
Come on, Tyler. You got it.
All right, Tyler, I'll give you some help here. Super Bowl champion, great middle linebacker, Wesley Woodyard, best guy to ever stripe up on the defense side of the ball, in the number 16 especially. And that's how many days we are away from the Kentucky Wildcat kickoff. Next Thursday, we're going to have our preview episode. We're going to dive deep into the Cats, give our schedule predictions. Last year, my schedule predictions was terrible. I think I had this team going 8-4, and they flipped it on me. So let's see. Hopefully, we get some good things going here. But we'll look forward to seeing you guys then. Check us out on social media, on X, on Instagram, on TikTok, anywhere you get your podcast, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, the whole nine. We're anywhere and everywhere. We're global, as Tyler Britton once said, a former collegiate athlete. That's all I got. We'll see you guys next Thursday. Go Big Blue.
Go Big Blue.
Go Big Blue.